I'm happy for him. He's accomplished something I didn't do even in his first year. It took me 2 years, 3 years. My third year I made the Pro Bowl. But I'm just proud of him. People have no idea of what he's truly gone through. Yeah. You just seeing what's on stage. Yeah. You never see behind the curtains. I know what's behind the curtains. I know all the bull junk that transpired. But I'm so darn proud of him as a man, and he's standing on his faith. He's standing on his belief, and his relationship with the Lord has come so much closer than it was before because of these transitions.
Deion Sanders does not break down. That is not who Primetime is. That is not the character he has built over 30 years in the public eye. The Hall of Famer, the coach, the brand, the man who has always been the loudest and most confident presence in any room he walks into, Deion Sanders does not cry on camera. He does not let the world see him shaken. He does not give the media the vulnerability they have been trying to extract from him for decades. Until right now. Until a private message from his son Shedeur got leaked to the public, and the words in that message were so personal, so raw, so deeply between a father and a son that when Deion read them out loud, his voice broke completely. And what he said after, "This is my son's legacy," is the moment that changed everything. Stay right here because this one is going to be different from
Do that. We're going to get that right. We got that right with what we did in this portal. But it was tough for the Sanders family. You know, both my daughters, my Shiloh getting cut, and he went out swinging. No, I got to give him that. He went out swinging.
Literally.
Right. Junior is with me right now doing his thing. Yeah. But it was a tough year. But we didn't falter, man.
Before we get into what the message said and what Deion's reaction revealed, you need to understand the full weight of the relationship between these two men, because Deion and Shedeur Sanders are not just father and son in the conventional sense. They are not just a family that happens to share a last name and a love of football. The relationship between Primetime and Shedeur is one of the most complex, most publicly scrutinized, most emotionally loaded father-son dynamics in the history of American sports. And understanding that complexity is what makes the leaked message and Deion's breakdowns so profound. Deion Sanders built one of the greatest individual legacies in the history of professional football. 2-sport professional athlete, 8 Pro Bowl selections, 2 Super Bowl rings, Hall of Fame induction, a career so decorated and so culturally significant that his nickname, Primetime, became bigger than his actual name in the cultural conversation. He was not just a great player. He was an event. Every game he played in felt different because of his presence. Every team he suited up for became appointment television. Deion Sanders made football glamorous in a way that nobody before him had managed and very few after him have replicated. And then he stepped away from playing and became a father and discovered that the hardest thing he had ever done was not covering Jerry Rice or returning punts or playing in 2 professional sports simultaneously. The hardest thing Deion Sanders ever did was raise a son in the shadow of everything he had built and do it in a way that gave that son the space to become his own person rather than just an extension of his father's legacy.
He did not always get that balance right.
Nobody does. And the public nature of their lives meant that every imperfection, every tension, every moment where the father's enormous presence threatened to overshadow the son's developing identity was visible to the entire world. The critics were always there. The commentators who said Deion was living through Shedeur. The analysts who suggested that the Sanders family dynamic was complicated in ways that would ultimately hurt Shedeur's NFL prospects. The anonymous sources during the draft process who used the father-son relationship as a weapon in the whisper campaign against Shedeur's draft stock. All of that is the backdrop. All of that is what makes the leaked message and Deion's reaction to it something that the football world was not emotionally prepared to witness. The message leaked the way things always leak in the social media era. Through someone who should not have had access to it, shared to someone who should not have shared it, and then multiplied across platforms so fast that by the time anyone in the Sanders camp could react, it was already everywhere. The origin of the leak is still being investigated, and the specifics of how a private communication between a father and son ended up in the public domain is a story in itself. A story about privacy, about the price of public life, about what it means to be a famous family in an age where nothing stays private for long. But the message itself, the actual words that Shedeur wrote to his father in what he believed was a completely private conversation, that is what stopped the internet cold, because what Shedeur wrote was not about football. It was not about draft stock or contract negotiations or professional storylines that the public had been following. It was a son talking to his father about what the journey had meant, about what it had cost, about the moments that nobody saw, the private moments in hotel rooms and locker rooms and late-night phone calls, when the noise from the outside world was at the loudest, and the only voice that cut through it was his father's, about the specific things Deion said and did during the most difficult stretches of the draft process that kept Shedeur grounded when the ground was moving underneath him. The message talked about the Colorado years, about what it actually felt like from the inside to play for your father, to have the person coaching you also be the person who raised you, to navigate the impossible emotional complexity of disappointing your head coach and disappointing your dad being the same experience, and how Shedeur had come to understand, not in the moment but looking back, that everything Deion did during those years, every tough conversation, every high standard, every moment that felt harsh in real time was built on a foundation of love so deep and so unconditional that it had become the most important thing in Shedeur's life to honor it. Hold on, because the line that broke Deion completely is the line that broke the internet. Today, the end of the message. After everything Shedeur had written about the journey and the relationship and the private moments that sustained him through the most public pressure of his life, he wrote something that nobody who has seen it will ever forget. He told his father that everything he was building, the contracts, the partnerships, the records, the cultural moment, all of it was not for himself, it was for Deion. It was his way of making sure that everything his father sacrificed, everything primetime poured into him when he did not have to, everything Deion gave up of his own privacy and his own peace, and his own carefully constructed public image by stepping back into the spotlight as a college football coach at the age he did it. None of it would go unrecognized. None of it would be forgotten. Shedeur was going to build something so large, so undeniable, so impossible to ignore that the world would forever connect what he accomplished to the father who made him capable of accomplishing it. He called it his father's legacy, not his own. His father's. When Deion Sanders read those words publicly, when the interviewer gently asked him to respond to the leaked message, and Deion sat with it for a long moment before he started speaking, the breakdown came not with theatrics or drama. It came the way real emotion always comes in someone who has spent decades controlling their public presentation. It came quietly. It came in the way his voice changed on certain words. It came in the long pause before he could continue. It came in the single line that he kept repeating, "This is my son's legacy," as if saying it out loud was the only way to make himself believe that the moment he had always been working toward as a father had actually arrived. But here is where it flips into something that is bigger than Deion's breakdown, and bigger than the leaked message, and bigger than any single moment in this ongoing story. And this is the part that reveals what Shedeur Sanders' entire journey has actually been about underneath all the noise. The whisper campaign during the draft process tried to use the father-son relationship as a liability. The anonymous sources and the manufactured concerns and the back-channel conversations that were designed to drop Shedeur's draft stock. So much of that narrative was built around the idea that having Deion Sanders as your father and your coach was a problem. That the relationship was complicated in ways that would make Shedeur difficult to coach, difficult to manage, difficult to integrate into a professional environment where the head coach.
You still show up through all the things
You
that you've
didn't
gone
make
through.
us, so you can't break us. You ain't build us, so you can't kill us. You ain't invent us, so you can't prevent us. We are Sanders, and we are built to last. And I love it. I love the trials and the tests. I just want people to keep on watching the story. Don't stop.
Yeah.
See, a lot of people, when they're going through the trials and tribulations, they stop in the middle and let people take pictures of it. And I'm not a hunter by any means, but they told me when people hunt.
What the leaked message revealed, what the words that Shedeur wrote in a private moment of vulnerability and love revealed, is that the narrative was completely backwards. The relationship between Deion and Shedeur Sanders is not a liability. It is the foundation. It is the thing that made Shedeur capable of withstanding everything the draft process threw at him. The thing that kept him grounded when the whisper campaign was at its loudest. The thing that gave him the emotional stability to reject a $200 million extension offer because he knew what he was worth. The thing that allowed him to crash Nike's website and sign Saudi investment deals and sell out jerseys in 10 minutes and do all of it without losing himself in the process. The father-son relationship that was supposed to be the weakness in the Shedeur Sanders story. It is the source of his greatest strength. And Deion breaking down when he understood that his son saw it the same way. That is not a vulnerability moment. That is a victory moment. The most human kind of victory there is that let's talk about what this means for Deion specifically, because his emotional response to the leaked message tells a story about fatherhood and sacrifice that goes far beyond sports. Deion Sanders came back into the public spotlight as a college football coach at a point in his life when he did not have to. He had the Hall of Fame. He had the rings. He had the brand. He had the legacy that was already cemented in the history of the sport. He could have spent the rest of his post-playing career in the comfortable distance of the broadcast booth, never putting his reputation back on the line, never subjecting himself to the scrutiny that comes with winning and losing in real time. He chose to coach because of Shedeur. Not exclusively. He is too honest and too self-aware to pretend that the competitive drive that made him prime time does not still live inside him. But the decision to take that risk, to step back into a world where he could fail publicly in front of the son he had raised, was driven by something that the leaked message confirmed was mutual. An investment in their relationship and in Shedeur's development that went beyond football strategy and into the territory of legacy and love, and what it means to be a father who uses everything he has to give his son the best possible chance. That is what broke Deion. Not the compliments, not the gratitude, the recognition, the understanding that his son had seen it clearly, had understood what the sacrifice actually was, and what it actually cost, and what it actually meant, and had chosen to honor it not with words in private but with the scale of what he was building in public. When a parent realizes that their child truly sees them, not the version they perform for the world, but the real version underneath, there is no emotional defense strong enough to hold against that. Not even if your name is Deion Sanders. Not even if you spent 30 years as the most unshakable presence
yet to Shedeur. So what advice has you given him? Now you head into a new season, a new off season with the Browns.
Work. That's the way you win everything in life, but work. I ain't never seen somebody that's don't want to work, win, or succeed, or become successful, or people follow. He's a worker. He's a bona fide worker. It's funny that all this bull junk they was putting out on him, at this time last year, where has that gone?
The football world has spent the last several months watching Shedeur Sanders break records and sign deals and crash websites and reject lowball offers and build an empire that nobody saw coming at this scale before his NFL career fully launched. And through all of it, the narrative question that kept coming back was, where does this drive come from? What is the fuel underneath all of this? What makes a 23-year-old young man walk away from $200 take on the Saudi investment world, crash Nike's servers, and position himself as the most commercially powerful rookie in NFL history before throwing a meaningful NFL pass? The leaked message answered that question. The fuel is his father. The drive is the specific, deeply personal commitment to honoring a relationship that was tested in public, scrutinized by strangers, weaponized by critics, and survived all of it with a bond not just intact but strengthened. Shedeur Sanders is not just building a career. He is building a monument to his father, a monument made of contracts and records and cultural moments that the world cannot ignore, because the world not being able to ignore it is the point. If the world could ignore it, it would not be enough. Deion Sanders broke down because he understood that. And Shedeur Sanders, who wrote those words in private and never intended for the world to see them, has given the NFL and the world something that no press conference or highlight reel or contract announcement could have provided: a genuine, unfiltered glimpse into the why behind everything. So, drop this in the comments right now. Does knowing the real story behind Shedeur Sanders' motivation change how you see everything he has accomplished before his NFL career has even fully launched? And do you think the people who tried to use the father-son relationship as a weapon against him during the draft process understand yet how badly they misread the situation? Because Deion's breakdown is the most powerful answer to every critic, every anonymous source, and every whisper campaign that has ever tried to make the Sanders family look like a liability. They are not a liability. They are each other's greatest strength. And the leaked message just proved it to the entire world. If you want a real story before anyone else gets it, you already know what to do. Hit subscribe and stay locked in. This is the Shedeur Sanders era, and it